1965 draft. This is one of the great stories of all time, and if you weren't there, you won't believe it.
The 65 draft, there were almost no rules, and the rules that were there were not observed very closely at all.
It was the Wild West, and I don't think there's been anything like it in professional football. The owners are losing money, so their job's at stake. So that pressure was really building, and guys that were used to walking the edge, I'm sure, stepped over it.
To my knowledge, it's the largest amount ever given to an athlete.
I'm the number one pick. What's going on here?
San Francisco 49ers select Jerry Rice.
There's always somebody looking to knock you off a pedestal.
Aaron Rodgers will be solid. How far he drops is going to be the storyline of the day.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame includes 5 enshrinees who were selected in the 1965 college draft. Fred Biletnikoff, Chris Hamburger, Broadway Joe Namath, and Chicago Bears teammates Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers. Other top stars of 65 included Chiefs receiver Otis Taylor, Redskins tight end Jerry Smith, and Jets Super Bowl III hero George Sauer Jr. The 65 draft was actually held on November 28, 1964. In 2 different Manhattan hotels just 4 blocks from each other, both the NFL and the rival American Football League conducted separate selections. So crucial were these player picks that both drafts were held even while the regular season was still in progress. The bidding would be vigorous, thanks to an infusion of cash awarded to the AFL by their new broadcasting partner.
When we signed this, and it was per team, probably as good as I think it was as good as the NFL, if not better. By the time that draft came along in 65, we had the NBC money, so you could stack it up.
In response to the AFL's new riches, the NFL devised a league-wide strategy to woo and win over top prospects.
Pete Rozelle said, in the war between the leagues, we really should treat the draft like a fraternity rush. We're trying to get people to pledge our fraternity. Take the kid out to dinner, meet his girlfriend, meet his family, get this college athlete into the mindset of why the NFL is the better league to go to.
The commissioner then called on a former Rams and Vikings executive to supervise the operation.
Well, Burt Rose was a guy that had a lengthy history with Pete Rozelle, and he was a guy that Pete knew. So if they were going to go ahead with this Operation Handhold, Pete wanted to have a guy there that he could trust, and Burt Rose was that guy.
And Rose was talking about hiring businessmen to just be representatives. It would be throughout the country. Sort of the cast of Mad Men would be who you would envision being the guys who would do this.
They had everybody and anybody you could think of. High-powered attorneys, car dealers, ranchers. It was really something.
These madmen of the gridiron were each given a United Airlines Gold Card, which enabled them to board any plane from anywhere. With such a resource, this battalion of babysitters flew campus stars all over the country. The college players were then stashed in luxury hotels, wined, dined, and successfully confined from AFL reps trying to negotiate.
Show up in my room, and there's a cooler of beer, sandwiches, knickknacks, and I'm saying, guys, I'm enjoying it, I'm using it.
They caught us flat-footed, and we just didn't have anything to match it. We never had a centralized organization. We didn't have a Burt Rose with people that could make calls, and they were organized, and they cleaned our clock.
On the campus of Cal Berkeley, negotiating for star quarterback Craig Morton proved an especially lopsided victory for the NFL's Cowboys over the nearby Raiders of the AFL.
It was kind of an interesting deal that we put together for him, and it involved a bookstore. Part of the contract was that Craig got this bookstore in Berkeley.
And then I was going to make one final trip to Dallas.
And they know that Mickey Mantle's my hero since I'm a boy. And I get on the plane, and I'm on the first row, and I look up, and it's Mickey Mantle. He's sitting next to me. I said, if they can do this, I probably should sign.
Desperate to compete for the top talent, the younger league bent some rules by going undercover.
The AFL was aggressively pursuing candidates to play football for them. Buffalo Bills had the rights to me. They had a secret draft, as they called it. So I was in negotiations with the Buffalo Bills way prior to the NFL draft.
What, of course, happened was some of the talent scouts in the AFL got together and talked about who was going to go where, who would make the most sense of being with which team, and there was a divvying up. The NFL was aware of this, it leaked out, and suddenly you've got a bad PR disaster in your hands.
In an era when spy films and TV shows were all the rage, the AFL's own Cold War against the NFL was led by the Oakland Raiders.
Some of that small-time cloak and dagger stuff was going on. You heard about hiding in closets and putting on garb that would hide the identity of the ball player, canceling other guys' flights, canceling reservations, basically trying to make it difficult for the competition.
The Raiders deployed such secret agent tactics to lure future Hall of Fame receiver Fred Biletnikoff away from the Detroit Lions.
I would get a car if I signed with the Raiders, but between both the teams, the money was basically the same. You know, it was almost like they had a set amount of money that they were offering and bonus money included.
So Al Davis's staff isolated the Florida State receiver from all contact with angered Detroit executives before Fred's final college game.
And the phone rings, and it's Leon Hart, former Heisman Trophy winner, player with the Detroit Lions, telling me what he was going to do to me when he got to me. And I can't repeat that on television, what he said, but scared the living bejesus out of me, I can tell you that.
That day, Fred set a Gator Bowl record with 4 touchdown catches. And as the final seconds ticked down, a fortified Raiders contingent elbowed their way past Lions GM Russ Thomas to the Florida State bench.
Al and Scotty Sterling both grabbed me right off the field. Al had hired some type of security, and Russ Thomas was behind the security from Detroit. They weren't going to get there first.
The scene that most spoke to what was going on was Fred Biletnikoff standing in the end zone, signing his contract over national TV while the cameras are still rolling. The Upstart League realizes they want to have a big-name signing. Obviously, the best way to do it is in conjunction with a national television broadcast, and better yet, a national television broadcast that the AFL doesn't have to pay for.
You know, when Al wanted to get something done, he was going to get it done, and whatever he had to do to go ahead and satisfy whatever he wanted as part of his team, he was going to get it done, and nothing was going to prevent him from doing that.
In the talent war between the leagues, the clear prize among running backs in the '65 draft was Gale Sayers.
I was All-American for 3 out of my 4 years. When I got onto the football field, I told the quarterback, give me the ball and watch out. I'm faster, I'm stronger. That's all I wanted to do. Just give me the ball and let me do my thing.
Gale's AFL rights were held by the Chiefs, whose owner Lamar Hunt used regional pride to entice Sayers.
University of Kansas, heartland of America, and Gale grew up in Omaha. His family was there. And the Kansas City Chiefs thought at that time that they would try to take advantage of the emotional pull to get Gale to come to play for the Chiefs.
He was also married to a woman who was from Kansas City, so they felt that they had an excellent chance of bringing him in. Lamar Hunt spent a good deal of time and offered a good deal of money to Gale Sayers to come to the AFL.
Hunt's local pedigree and bank account seemed a mismatch against the NFL's Bears, whose frugal owner was also after the Kansas Comet.
Well, I knew Lamar had something like $500 or $600 million, and I was concerned whether he'd use that dough to get Gale Sayers. Then I saw game film of Gale in action, and I never saw such moves in my life. And I made up my mind right then and there. Lamar Hunt and all his dough won't mean a thing. I'm going to get Gale Sayers.
The Bears contact Sayers, and they contact Sayers not necessarily with the old, crusty George Halas, but with the league representative Buddy Young, who had been a player, who had understood what it was like to be the only African-American on a football team.
In terms of the babysitting, particularly African-American players at that time, there was just a need for someone like Buddy Young, a veteran person, to advise these players on how to act on and off the field.
The National Football League was interested in getting quality football players. Gale Sayers is a quality football player. And
Buddy Young, he told me that I was going with the Bears because, and I would like for you to be with the Bears because they are an established team. The AFL, you never know. They may not be here next year.
And what Young was able to offer, that Lamar Hunt and all of his riches could not offer, was the prestige of going to one of the charter franchises. In the end, despite the home field advantage that the Chiefs had, Sayers winds up signing with the Bears.
Well, I always admired Mr. Halas, and I think that my wife and I would be very happy here.
For another first-round pick, Papa Bear played the hometown angle, alluring University of Illinois linebacker Dick Butkus away from the AFL's Denver Broncos.
Butkus is pure Chicago. From the South Side, Roseland neighborhood, tough working class area, son of Lithuanian immigrants. He's one of us made good.
Like the AFL's secret draft, the NFL had also held prior discussions, which reassured Halas that Butkus would be staying put in Chicago.
The night before the draft, I get this call. So I get on the phone with Arthur Morris. He says, see, I told you the Bears came back with an offer. Here it is. So I hang up the phone and I'm like, how do we know? I mean, how does he know I'm going to be drafted by the Bears? See, it was all rigged.
The Bears are in the NFL, and I think the NFL is the major leagues. What the heck? And I told Denver that I was anticipating on going with the Bears and that one considered Denver no matter what.
But he knew you were going to be drafted by the Bears. Like I knew it the night before the draft.
Well, he didn't tell me.
Really?
No.
Jeez. He calls me. He says, okay, we're going to shake. We got a deal with the Bears. He knew. It was all rigged.
Well,
everybody knew who they were going to draft.
I got a contract. That's all I wanted.
The same here.
I got a contract.
Same here. But you know what happened? What they told me on the phone? When it ended up signing it, it was half. Whatever. But I was glad. I was glad to be, hey, they're going to pay me to play this game I love. Are you kidding me?
It was the NFL's biggest win in their talent war with the AFL.
The greatest draft in the history of football was 1965 when the Bears picked Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers, two of the greatest football players who ever played in the National Football League. Maybe as good as anybody at their position who's ever played the game.
How the Bears got Butkus and Sayers with the third and fourth picks, that's something that Oliver Stone might want to do a movie about.
No owner would play a greater role in the drama of the 1965 draft than the Houston Oilers' Bud Adams. His impact began at the very start of the AFL draft, in which he owned the first two picks. With the #1 overall choice, Adams burnished his own franchise by selecting Baylor receiver Larry Elkins, number 26. But then his concerns turned from Big Oil to the Big Apple, where Adams traded the #2 pick in the AFL draft to the Jets in exchange for native Texan Jerry Rome.
You look at it and you say, well, why would a team do that? I mean, that just doesn't seem to make any sense. Well, in the context of the times, it made perfect sense. The decision was made on the part of Bud Adams, the Houston owner, because he's getting back a quarterback from Texas who he can sell to his audience. But more importantly, he's giving the Jets the opportunity to go up and draft Joe Namath, because for the overall good of the American Football League, which all of these owners were well aware of, the best thing for the league would be put that marquee player in the city with the biggest marquee.
The millions who will visit the New York World's Fair in the next 2 years will also gaze on a glamorous new sports center, Shea Stadium. New York Cinderella football team, the Jets, take over the park next fall.
The Jets not only had a big stage, but by 1964, they had an owner with the expertise to make the most of it. David A. Sonny Werblin.
He was the agent at MCA for the biggest people in television and movies in those years. Frank Sinatra, Elizabeth Taylor, Johnny Carson, Jackie Gleason. I mean, he was the man. If you wanted a show, he was the guy that gave you the performer.
His partners thought they were in the football business. He said, what a bunch of jerks. We're in the TV business. And he understood that the players were the product.
Just like he had in movies, music, and television, Sonny planned to make a splash with whatever superstars he could collect in his stable. In the 1965 draft, the biggest stud available was the Crimson Tide's Joe Namath.
Here was this rascal, not a maverick, a rascal. Wore his hair long, but could throw the 25-yard out like nobody could ever do it before. Most importantly, he looked great on television. That charisma came through.
You got a team out there working with you like the rest of the guys from Alabama, a real good team. You don't have to worry too much about it.
Joe Namath was the type of person you could take with a young football club, pre-sale your tickets, and probably from the interest alone from the pre-sales, defray a lot of the costs that you would be paying Joe Namath.
The cannon-armed Crimson Tide quarterback was throwing fuel on the AFL-NFL arms race. It reached a flashpoint when the NFL's St. Louis Cardinals selected Namath with the 12th pick in the NFL draft, then visited Joe at Alabama to negotiate. On the advice of his college coach, Paul Bear Bryant, Namath opened by asking for a contract worth $200,000.
Oh, no, this is crazy. $200,000. They're going back and forth, waving it. And I had forgotten to mention the new car. And a new car. $200,000 and a new car. See, yeah, and one of them said, what kind of car? I said, a Lincoln Continental convertible. Oh, sure, a Lincoln Continental convertible, yeah. The boy wants a Lincoln Continental, made an issue out of it. 30 or 40 seconds later, they got papers in their hands. All right, well, let's sign here, let's sign there. And I said, wait a minute.
They wanted Joe to sign the contract immediately right there. Number one, that would have been illegal. It would have made Joe ineligible. And he felt like at that time, he said, hey, I better get a lawyer. So he called me, that's when he called me.
It became clear in NFL circles that perhaps the only team in the league with the resources to meet Namath's demands was the New York Giants. They contacted the Cardinals about acquiring Namath's NFL rights. The Giants knew signing Namath would be a double windfall. It would make his star power property of the NFL, and by extension, would maintain the Giants' place as the preeminent pro football team in town. But to land Namath, the Giants would have to find some way to outduel Werblin. No one was going to outspend Sonny in his quest to acquire stars.
My lawyer was also an entertainment lawyer, and he knew Sonny Werblin. And we were waiting for Sonny Werblin to make a trade and get me to come to New York.
Dick Butkus's AFL rights belonged to Denver. And while Sonny couldn't swing a deal for the Jets to get them, he remained determined to generate headlines. So after taking Namath with a first-round pick in the '65 draft, Werblin used a second-round pick on another big-name quarterback.
Hewitt rolls off to the right.
Heisman Trophy winner John Hewitt from Notre Dame.
I was drafted by the Jets and the Philadelphia Eagles. So I spoke to the Eagles and then sat down with Sonny Werblin of the Jets, just a real gentleman, and gave us some really good numbers, and we said, that's it. We're going to go with the Jets. I didn't realize at the time, but you look back on it, it was a good move. Draft Joe for what you want, and you draft another kid over here who's well-known and help sell season tickets. That had a lot to do with my being drafted to the Jets.
You know, we not only signed John Ewart, we had another quarterback from Virginia Tech, Bob Schweikert, and we drafted Archie Roberts, who was a quarterback at Columbia.
David A. Sonny Werblin, the quintessential guy behind the guy. Part showman, part shadow figure, 100% mover and shaker. But whether his vision of blending sports and entertainment could truly come to pass on Namath's golden arm would still require the most daring stroke in the history of Werblin's mighty pen. In 1964, the Alabama Crimson Tide were crowned college football's national champions, due largely to the dynamic playmaking of their quarterback, Joe Namath.
Watch number 12. That's Joe Namath.
With the NFL and AFL competing for college football's best talent, Joe Namath's market value began to skyrocket.
And in most cases in those days, players did not have somebody representing them.
I mean, they would go to meet with teams, and they would just pretty much take what the team put on the table.
I don't know how much we bargained or not. This is their offer, and this is what all the other guys are getting, and we all made about the same thing, except for Namath, and that was an unusual case.
Namath was sitting on a golden ticket, and his contract negotiations would help create a new business entity, the sports agent.
Agents, we didn't even use that name at the time, agents. Didn't know what, that name became popular after.
So in a way, you could say the rise of the agent was, if not predicated, at least accelerated by the war between the leagues, because it created a natural situation in which you would want to have an advocate making the best deal between the competing offers.
I get a phone call from Joe Namath. Hey, there's some people want to talk to me about my football contract. I want you to help me.
Yeah, the Mike Bite was a friend of Joe. He's also a graduate of the University of Alabama.
Well, he was really the only lawyer that I knew.
A lot of people would think, oh, he was so naive, he only thing knew about real estate that he didn't know what the going market was for football. The hell I didn't.
Negotiations with Jets owner Sonny Werblin opened at $300,000, but that was just the beginning.
And I said, Joe, this thing's getting interesting. He said, wait a minute, what about my mama, my brother, and my sister? I want them to get some money. I said, holy cow, it's like blowing into a balloon, and the next breath could blow this thing wide open. But remember, he was getting ready at this time to play in the Orange Bowl.
The city of Miami emphasizes gateway to the Americas and home of the Orange Bowl.
The 1965 Orange Bowl was a spectacle of pageantry and extravagance.
Parade Marshal Jackie Gleason, ready to roll.
The star-studded event captivated the nation, and Joe Namath's final college game had become must-see TV.
It was the first time the Orange Bowl was televised at night in living color.
An injury earlier in the week prevented Namath from starting the game, but after Alabama fell behind 14-0, the man everyone came to see took the field.
And Coach Bryant looks over and calls Namath to stand up. He puts that big paw on him and ushers him out on that damn field. That damn stadium went berserk.
Alabama sensational Joe Namath now at quarterback with a tie. He connects to Perkins for 25 yards.
And I looked at Mr. Werblin and I said, franchise.
Namath was named the Orange Bowl's MVP, despite playing just over half the game.
With someone as charismatic as Joe Namath, you can't take your eyes off of him on the field. That's just the way it goes. The way you couldn't keep your eyes off Michael Jordan, They become fan favorites because there's something about the figure on the field, how he carries himself.
The greatest passer in college football. Fires again, and it's good to Perkins for 18.
A record 25 million viewers had tuned in to watch Joe Namath play in the Orange Bowl. 20 million more than the year before. Sonny Werblin and the Jets signed Namath the next day.
We did not cheat. We played it by the book. That contract was signed on national television. He hadn't received a penny prior to that time.
To my knowledge, it's the largest amount ever given to an athlete for professional services. And let me say we're very happy to do it.
And by the end of the negotiation, Joe has I believe a Kelly Green Lincoln Continental.
White top convertible, yeah, and a green bottom. It was bad. Boy, it was a sweet car.
He's got a job for 3 people on the Jets' payroll.
Yeah, we signed, my brother Bob and myself, we signed on as a scout with the Jets. And, of course, they didn't pay any attention to my scouting.
The commission that Mike Byte is getting is paid by the Jets, so it doesn't come out of Joe's money. And the ultimate value of the contract is $427,000, which at that time was believed to be the largest contract in the history of professional team sports.
The salary of Joe Namath got them the impetus to become on a par with the Giants, even before he stepped on a football field. My God, if the guy is worth $427,000, this is something we've got to see.
At a time when football's best players were making $20,000 a year, Namath signed a 3-year contract that paid him $75,000 a season, plus a $200,000 signing bonus.
Joe Namath, the world's richest rookie.
It was a huge investment, but Sonny Werblin and the AFL had bested the NFL by acquiring the top prospect of the 1965 draft.
The press and some of the players in the NFL made a bigger fuss about it than anybody else, you know. It was outrageous sum of money.
Well, I doubt if anybody's worth $400,000 right out of college.
Frank Ryan had just led the Browns to the title, and he said, if Namath is worth $400,000, I'm worth $1 million.
That's when the whole business of pro football became the true business of pro football.
You know, that's the equation. Money equals stardom, as long as you can justify it.
Namath didn't just justify his contract, he went on to guarantee it. And within 4 years, delivered the Jets an historic Super Bowl win that validated the merger of the AFL with the NFL.
The game is over. The New York Jets are the world champions. They have upset the Baltimore Colts and beat them handily here today.
Namath was worth more than $427,000, not just for what he did on the field, but for what he brought to the AFL.
Namath's name is magic, especially in New York, where record numbers are turning out, hoping to see the former Alabama star.
But I wasn't going to be bound by your rules. I was bringing a different product. I wasn't bringing a jock. I was bringing a star. Could give you a different market. Women.
You saw women. It wasn't just men at a football game.
He changed the game, changed the profession, changed the league.
If you had asked us in 1962 what business we were in, we would have said, we're football business. If you look at the marketing plan of the National Football League today, it's the entertainment business. And that was the moment it changed. And Sonny decided to make a star.
Signing Joe Namath immediately infused the Jets with talent and glamour. 2 things the crosstown Giants would be in desperate need of by the end of 1964, when future Hall of Famers Y.A. Tittle and Frank Gifford retired. What the Giants did have at the end of '64 was the #1 pick in the NFL draft. Ultimately, it wasn't enough to help them win the battle for Namath. So instead, they targeted the running back whose college career he'd ended in the 1964 Alabama-Auburn game.
We voted not to go to a bowl
in the locker room afterwards. So that made me eligible for the draft immediately. The Giants called me the next morning after that Alabama game, and they said, we're going to draft you number 1.
The NFL at that point, although there was the myth of the field general and there was Unitas and Tittle, was also a running league. And the idea that Tucker Fredrickson was going to be the golden boy to fill Frank Gifford's shoes eventually was very prevalent in New York at the time.
I'd never been to New York, but I wanted to go. Got a call from the Broncos, who wanted me to draft me number 1 in the AFL. And I, like a dummy, I said, don't waste your draft. So that's why I wasn't drafted in the AFL. Back then, there were no agents per se. I certainly didn't have one. Joe was smart enough to get one, so Joe was able to think about it and get some help. I had no help. Shame on me. Was happy for Joe for the $400,000 that he made. Made my little 125 or 130, whatever it was, a little puny, but I wanted to go to New York and I wanted to play football and to get paid to play football. Wow, that was pretty cool.
The year before taking Tucker Fredrickson with the number 1 overall pick in the '65 draft, the Giants won just 2 games. In his first season, New York won 7, and Fredrickson was voted to the Pro Bowl. For a moment at least, the Jets were not the only team in town with optimism.
The Giants are looking to the future. And in Fredrickson, who has the sustained momentum to barrel his way through for touchdowns, there is a new force in New York.
My second year, 66 in training camp, I got hit and got my left leg turned. And then the last exhibition against the Green Bay Packers, I went out for a pass and the whole thing caved in. My leg was never the same. Every practice, every game from that point on, it was loose. It's still loose today. The ACL back then, they didn't know how to fix them. Today, Adrian Peterson, for example, had the same operation, and he gained 2,000 yards the next year.
Adrian Peterson, 8 yards shy of Eric Dickerson's single-season mark.
Back then, most of the time, that injury was career-ending, and it certainly slowed me.
Though he missed the entire 1966 season, Fredrickson still cashed in on being in the financial capital of the world.
That was a great opportunity for us back then, was to play for the Giants or play for the Jets and go into New York and get to meet the captains of industry.
That's 2,000 out, Jack. 2,000 out and a quarter, yeah.
So I got into Wall Street and got a job in the off season.
What would you like to buy today?
In the land of bulls and bears, Fredrickson was booming. Back on the field, his team was going bust at quarterback. 2 rounds after they'd taken Fredrickson in 1965, the Giants had selected Michigan quarterback Bob Timberlake. Based on his college career, even Timberlake wasn't sure why.
I was surprised that I was drafted at all because I was not a particularly good passer. We'd never run a pro offense. As a matter of fact, my senior year, every play, we centered the ball on the first sound. We didn't even go through a long series of signals. That was to minimize mistakes. So the idea of coming in and running a full pro offense was quite intimidating to me.
Sometimes it becomes a swell of excitement over a performance when we don't know game by game how well a player did in college. Bob Timberlake played very well in the Rose Bowl for Michigan. And I'm sure when Timberlake was in the Giants training camp, the Giants thought, wow, he's just not as good as we thought, but we still got to give him a chance.
So they did, as a kicker.
I remember hearing boos from time to time before I kicked. One of the lines that seemed to grow out of the season was that I held an NFL record for the highest percentage of field goal misses per attempt. That was 1 out of 13, and that the record would never be equaled because it would require a unique combination of an inept kicker and a stupid coach.
Like a kick from Timberlake's toe, the Giants were headed in the wrong direction. The Fredrickson pick hadn't steadied their offense. And now they had neither a dependable quarterback or kicker. That meant that when it came to profits and losses from the '65 draft, the two teams in New York had come out on different sides of the ledger, thanks largely to two college players who'd come north from the state of Alabama and become pivotal agents in the turf war between the leagues.
It's easy to reflect back and say, well, what if you would not have had the injuries? What would it have been like? There may have been some good things that could have happened. Maybe I could have had a good professional career, but it's tough for me to look at it that way. It happened, and I'm a realist, and those things happen to football players.
All right, partner. With the guys that came through our draft, Sayers, Butkus, Joe, Craig Morton, Biletnikoff, I think that was as good a draft that's ever been. I was happy to go to New York, and looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Maybe the Giants don't say it, but it was where I wanted to be.
The Cowboys were the NFL's most active team in the spy versus spy world of the '65 draft. Dallas nearly stole star receiver Otis Taylor from Kansas City until a chief scout crafted his own act of counterespionage.
Lloyd Wells, who I've known for many years from junior high school on, he and I became just great friends, his fatherly figure. I had told Lloyd that I wanted to play for the Chiefs, and he said I had a great chance with the Chiefs, blah, 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 and all this stuff.
But that apparent agreement went up in smoke when Taylor suddenly disappeared into the Texas night in the custody of the Cowboys.
Gil Brandt kidnapped Otis and a buddy of his by the name of Seth Cartwright, and they brought him up to Dallas. They put him in a Holiday Inn. They put a guard, a former scout, right by his door. Nobody goes in and out of this room. Well, the scout got overserved and kind of was asleep at the wheel. Lloyd Wells drives up to Dallas, finds the janitor, gives him $20, and he said, I want you to go and get that boy. Let me know what room Otis Taylor is.
I ordered something to eat, and as I was eating, I saw a note under the plate giving me some instructions. Felt sort of obligated to Mr. Wells. So in doing that course of time, I decided that I would make my move.
Wells and Taylor escaped through the back window onto the parking lot and left Cartwright there, who nobody wanted.
I left and came to Kansas City. My first airplane ride, I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared as hell. And we talked, and I signed. I signed with Kansas City.
The Cowboys were far more successful when it came to acquiring Oklahoma All-American tackle Ralph Neely. But it would require a head-to-head battle with their Lone Star State rival, the Houston Oilers. The Colts originally held Neely's draft rights, but Ralph wanted to stay in the Southwest, providing the opening Oilers owner Bud Adams needed to secure Ralph's services.
It was common that most players signed the contracts before the first of the year. And if you're in a bowl game, you signed an undated contract. Houston contract, I think, was like $16,000 or $17,000 a year for 4 years. And the Phillips 66 gas station. The Adams family started Phillips. And I thought, well, that's cool.
While on the Oklahoma campus, Neely learned that the Colts had traded his NFL rights to the Cowboys. Much as playing in Dallas appealed to Ralph, he still intended to keep his commitment to Houston.
The agreement from Neely's people was, we'll sign the contract, but the contract has to remain secret until after the bowl game that Oklahoma played in. In fact, what the Oilers do, because they want to get it done and dusted and taken care of, is they submit the contract to the league office. In so doing, they make it official.
Once the signing became public, Neely's world came crashing down.
I get a call from Gomer Jones, at that time was the Oklahoma head coach. He said, Bud Adams just went on national television saying that he had you signed to a contract, causing me and 4 of my teammates get kicked off the team. He called and I said, Coach, I signed it. So he said, well, you can't play.
And Dallas makes the case, look, return this contract to the other league. It was signed too early anyway, and you sign with us. Well, he returns the $25,000 bonus check to Bud Adams and says they violated the privacy of the agreement, and so he's going to sign with the other league.
I figured, hey, the contract was undated. I sent all his money back. So as far as I was concerned, I was in the clear.
The success that the Cowboys experienced in 1965 featured the development of fine rookies. For example, Ralph Neely.
Following Ralph's rookie season, a panel of federal judges overturned a previous ruling and sent the frustrated Neely back to the courtroom.
And they reversed everything, and I became property of Houston Oilers after playing a year for Dallas and had a pretty good year. Along this time, there were some negotiations going on for the merger between the NFL and the AFL. Before the merger could happen, my case had to be settled. Dallas gave Houston a first, a second, and 2 fifth-round draft choices, and agreed to pay all the court costs, which was over $250,000, and play 3 exhibition games in Houston and not share the gate.
And it was a great deal for us because Neely went on to play 170-some games. I don't know if we were the bad guys or not. We got the good player. That's all I cared about.
You know, I was picked by the NFL Hall of Fame team, all-time team of the 60s. What Dallas gave up to get me and what they got back, they got a good return on their money.
The Neely settlement brought about a fitting conclusion to the cloak and dagger capers of the '65 draft.
From that point forward, you began moving towards what everybody understood was inevitable merger. The 2 leagues were going to come together. The 2 leagues were going to have to learn to work together. The '65 draft was kind of the end of that frontier era. The greater picture, the bigger picture, is the fact that over that same time and in that same year, 3 of the greatest players that ever played also emerged through the draft.
They came in at a time when the rest of the NFL really didn't know how to handle them because they were new. So they were immediately at the height of their abilities. The league was hungry for stars. We were looking for people who we wanted to make heroes.
David A. Sonny Werbler, the president of our team, he brought the star system with him to the New York Jets. He took me and put me in that position. I can remember him saying, he said, stars sell tickets. People come to see stars.
Gale Sayers, Dick Butkus, and Joe Namath. 3 guys that came in through this whole sort of craziness of that draft, but emerged as the players that were going to take the NFL into the future.